I stand frozen in the entryway of my parents' suburban Boulder home, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the gleaming hardwood floor. I've come to pick up my boys after my mother insisted on watching them while I finished a work presentation. But the voices drifting from the kitchen stop me cold. Let Claire's kids eat first. Eli and Noah can have the leftovers. My mother, Linda's voice carries through the house, with the casual cruelty of someone who doesn't expect to be overheard. My sister Claire adds with a soft laugh that turns my stomach. They might as well get used to it. Kids like them don't need much. My heart hammers against my ribs as I take 3 silent steps forward, just enough to see into the dining room. My nephews Ava and Connor sit at the table, plates piled with steaming lasagna. The good plates, the ones Mom brings out for special occasions. My gaze drops to the kitchen floor where my sons, 8-year-old Eli and 6-year-old Noah, sit cross-legged on the tile with paper plates balanced on their laps. Cold sandwiches, not even cut diagonally the way they like. My father Gerald glances up from his recliner, newspaper lowered just enough to see over the top. They need to learn their place in this world. Time seems to freeze. The room compresses around me, oxygen suddenly scarce. I watch my boys, heads bent over their paper plates, shoulders hunched in a posture I recognize now as shame. How many times have they sat like this while I was working? How many times have I missed the signs? My hands begin to tremble, rage building like a physical force in my chest. Boys, I say, my voice barely above a whisper, get your backpacks. 5 heads snap in my direction. My mother's face transforms instantly, her mouth curving into a bright, false smile. Oh, we didn't hear you come in. Claire straightens the silverware beside her plate with precise movements, not quite meeting my eyes. The boys said they preferred sandwiches. The lie hangs between us. Eli looks up at me, his dark eyes so much like Malcolm's holding mine. No words needed. The truth passes between us in that silent exchange, along with something else that breaks my heart. Resignation. Noah pushes himself up from the floor, his small voice tight as he asks, "Can we go home now?" 4 simple words that tell me everything I need to know. This isn't the first time. Gerald waves his hand dismissively, paper rustling. They're fine. Stop being so sensitive. My mind flashes to the checkbook in my purse. Just last month, a $6,800 check for their new roof. The year before that, another $5,000 for Claire's minivan repair. 9 years of writing checks since I landed my first real job at 25. 9 years of Malcolm's gentle warnings. They call you for money, not for dinner. The weight of co-signing their $260,000 mortgage presses down on my shoulders. How many times had I defended them to Malcolm? That's just how they show love. They're old-fashioned. Old-fashioned. The word tastes bitter now. Linda steps toward me, coffee cup extended like an olive branch. You're always in such a rush. Stay for coffee. Claire slides into the conversation with practiced nonchalance. It's not a big deal. Kids don't care about these things. I move past them to gather my son's jackets from the hook by the door, noting how quickly the boys collect their things. The practiced movements, the way Eli helps Noah zip up without being asked. They've done this before, escaping quickly, quietly, without drawing attention. Don't make a scene, Gerald warns, folding his newspaper with deliberate care. You're overreacting. I take a breath, feeling something solid forming in my chest, where uncertainty used to live. We're leaving. We won't be back until you can explain this. Claire watches with narrowed eyes, her sense of entitlement almost tangible in the air between us. Linda's hands flutter anxiously at her throat, panic rising as she realizes she's losing control of the narrative. Gerald's authoritarian stance seems to crumble slightly as I refuse to back down. Eli takes Noah's hand, protective in a way no 8-year-old should need to be of his little brother. As we move toward the door, my gaze catches on the family photos lining the hallway. Years of subtle positioning I'd never noticed before. Claire's family centered in every frame. My family, Malcolm, the boys, me always at the edges, as if we might be cropped out without anyone noticing. The front door closes behind us with a soft click that somehow sounds final. In the golden light of late afternoon, with my son's hands in mine, clarity washes over me like a wave. This isn't new, I whisper, more to myself than to them. I've just been blind. I squeeze their small hands in mine and lead them to the car, away from the house that suddenly feels less like home, and more like the scene of a long, slow crime I've been financing for years. Later that evening, at home, I sat cross-legged on our bed, Laptop balanced on my knees, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. The spreadsheet glows accusingly in the dim light of our bedroom. 9 years of transactions stare back at me, a digital paper trail of my own exploitation. Malcolm appears in the doorway, a steaming mug of chamomile tea in his hands. He says nothing, just places it on my nightstand and watches my face. The slight furrow between his brows tells me he's worried but won't push. Not yet. $141,000, I whisper, the number burning my throat like acid. 9 years of family emergencies and temporary help. Malcolm sits beside me, the mattress dipping slightly under his weight. His silence is a courtesy I don't deserve after years of dismissing his concerns. I open another document, this one created in the 4 hours since we left my parents' house. A list of occasions when my family refused to help us. My emergency gallbladder surgery 3 years ago when Mom claimed they were too busy to watch the boys. Our move to the new house when Dad's back suddenly acted up. Eli's overnight hospital stay for pneumonia when Claire was worried her kids might catch something. My phone buzzes. A text from my mother. You're being dramatic. Come back tomorrow. Malcolm's hand finds mine, his touch warm against my cold fingers. Jacqueline, he says softly. They've never invited us for Christmas morning. Always afternoon. The simple observation crashes through me like a wrecking ball. Every Christmas for 8 years always told to come after presents because morning is our special family time. I'd never questioned why Claire's family was included in that special family time, while we weren't. I scroll through my voicemail history. Gerald's messages follow a pattern. Friendly greetings, quick personal questions, then the inevitable request. Sweetheart, the property taxes went up again. Just a small bump in our support would help tremendously. Support, as if I owed them a lifetime of financial servitude for raising me. Texts from Claire reveal a pattern I'd willfully ignored for years. References to those boys instead of their names. Constant comments about their appearance. Noah's hair is getting so ethnic. Have you considered straightening it? Cancellations when our families were supposed to meet, always with transparent excuses. Then there's Linda, caught between her husband's demands and occasional flashes of conscience. Her messages swing wildly between guilt trips and rare moments of genuine affection, the inconsistency designed to keep me off balance and compliant. But what turns my stomach cold is discovering Gerald's name still listed as the emergency contact at the boys' school, a form I thought I'd updated months ago. Claire's position as PTA secretary suddenly takes on new meaning. She's had access to school forms all along. I close my laptop around midnight, but sleep refuses to come. At 2 a.m, I find myself standing in the doorway of my son's room, watching their peaceful breathing in the glow of Noah's turtle nightlight. They don't love my children the way they should, I whisper to the darkness. A truth so obvious now that I wonder how I missed it for so long. I move through our home with quiet purpose, taking down framed photos from the hallway wall. In one, taken at Eli's kindergarten graduation, Claire's children stand front and center while mine are partially cut off at the edge. Another from last Thanksgiving shows Noah reaching for a dinner roll while my father's hand blocks him, the gesture captured accidentally but speaking volumes. Malcolm finds me replacing these photos with ones of just our family camping trips, beach vacations, backyard barbecues, where the boys' smiles reach their eyes. It's time to protect our boys, he says, taking a tarnished silver frame from my hands. They deserve better. Tears slide down my cheeks, but something has changed. The suffocating guilt that's driven me for years transforms into something harder, something with edges sharp enough to cut through the tangle of obligations I've wrapped around myself. I've been financing my children's rejection, I say, the words hanging between us like a confession. The next morning, I call Sarah, my best friend since college. I need to tell you what happened, I begin, my voice steadier than I expected. After I finish, the line goes quiet for so long I check to make sure we're still connected. I've seen it for years, Sarah finally says. I didn't know how to tell you. Those simple words, the validation that I'm not crazy, not overreacting, break something loose inside me. Within hours, support materializes from places I hadn't thought to look. Malcolm's parents offering immediate assistance without questions. My coworker Taylor sharing resources about racial bias in families. My boss granting personal days with a knowing look that suggests she understands more than I've ever shared. By evening, I've made the first concrete steps: cancellation of the automatic monthly transfers to my parents, a call to the mortgage company to begin the process of removing my name, instructions to the bank, restricting any new credit extensions under my name, the closing of the family emergency fund account I've maintained for nearly a decade. Each action brings a hollow victory, the satisfaction of reclaiming control undercut by the reality of what necessitated these measures. My body registers the stress in ways my mind can't yet process: tension, headaches that start at the base of my skull, sleeplessness that leaves me staring at the ceiling, anxiety that manifests as a constant tightness in my chest. But beneath the physical discomfort lies something unfamiliar, the solid foundation of a boundary, long overdue and finally taking shape. 2 days later, I stare at my phone as my father's voicemail plays for the third time. His voice booms through the speaker, filling my kitchen with the familiar mix of authority and expectation. "Jacqueline, there's a banking error. The transfer didn't go through. Call me back immediately." No error exists, just my deliberate choice to stop the automatic monthly payment that's drained my account for years. My thumb hovers over the delete button, but instead, I save it. Evidence. The phone vibrates again. My mother. Her fourth call today. I let it ring through to voicemail, already knowing what message awaits. Linda's voice trembles when she speaks, a calculated tremor that once would have sent me rushing to fix whatever problem she claimed to have. "Sweetheart, please call us back. The mortgage payment is due next week. We'll lose the house if you don't help. How could you do this to us?" Malcolm watches me from across the kitchen counter, his expression careful. "You okay?" I take a deep breath, rehearsing the response I've practiced with my therapist. "No error, Dad. Just boundaries." The words taste strange but satisfying, like a food I've avoided for years only to discover I love it. "I'm better than okay," I tell Malcolm, surprising myself with how true it feels. The doorbell rings, and Noah races in from the living room. "I'll get it." "Wait," I call, but he's already turning the lock. The door swings open to reveal Claire standing on our porch, her expression a perfect mask of sisterly concern. My stomach tightens. "Auntie Claire," Noah exclaims, genuine delight in his voice that makes my heart ache. He doesn't understand yet. Claire steps inside without waiting for an invitation. "Jacqueline, we need to talk. This has gone far enough." "Noah, please go finish your homework with Eli," I say, keeping my voice level. He hesitates, sensing the tension, then disappears down the hallway. "You can't just show up at my home unannounced." I tell her once he's gone. "I tried your office first," she replies, as if this proves her point. "Your assistant wouldn't let me in. Taylor had texted me a warning. Your sister's here. I told her you're in meetings all day. Should I call security?" I'd been grateful then. I'm furious now. "You went to my workplace? That's completely inappropriate." Claire waves away my objection. "Family comes first, Jacqueline. You used to understand that." The bitter laugh escapes before I can stop it. "Family comes first? Is that why my sons were eating sandwiches on the kitchen floor while your kids had lasagna at the table?" Her face flushes. "You're still being dramatic about that," Mom explained. "Get out," I say quietly. She blinks, genuinely surprised. "What?" "Get out of my house, now." Malcolm appears beside me, solid and steady. "You heard her, Claire. It's time for you to leave." After she storms out, the house feels suddenly lighter. Malcolm orders pizza for dinner, something we rarely do on weeknights. We eat around the coffee table, watching a movie the boys choose. Eli and Noah laugh more freely than I've heard in months, their shoulders relaxed, their smiles reaching their eyes. Later, after the boys are in bed, Malcolm finds me at the kitchen table, scrolling through dozens of missed calls and messages. Uncle Robert asking why I've abandoned the family. Cousin Jennifer wondering if I'm having a mental health episode. A notification from the community Facebook group, where someone has anonymously questioned my family values. "You know what I noticed tonight?" Malcolm asks, sliding into the chair beside me. I look up from the phone. "What?" "I've never seen you stand this tall," he says simply. The tears come without warning, hot and unexpected. Not sad tears, relieving ones, like a pressure valve finally releasing. "I was never the problem," I whisper, the realization crystallizing. I was the solution they exploited. Malcolm takes my hand. "Start writing it down. All of it." The journal becomes my armor. Every manipulation, every emergency loan, every subtle slight against Malcolm or the boys. 9 years of financial transfers meticulously recorded alongside the corresponding familial obligation. The pattern emerges in black and white. Money flowing out, conditional love trickling back. When Linda requests a meeting at Copperleaf Coffee 2 days later, neutral ground, she calls it, I agree. But I am prepared this time. She arrives precisely 15 minutes late, eyes reddened just enough to draw sympathetic glances from other patrons. Her timing is impeccable, not so late that I might leave, but long enough that my coffee has cooled and my patience has thinned. Sweetheart. She begins, voice lowered to a confidential whisper. You know how certain neighbors talk. We're just keeping things comfortable. My hand slips into my pocket, pressing record on my phone. What exactly do you mean, Mom? Her eyes dart to the table beside us where an elderly couple pretends not to listen. You know exactly what I mean. Your boys are wonderful, but different. We help them navigate that. Different how? I press, my voice steady. Linda leans closer. Sweetheart, you know how certain neighbors talk. We're just keeping things comfortable. You already said that. What do you mean by comfortable? She sighs. It's about appearances, Jackie. We can't help what people think when they see mixed families. I slide the phone onto the table between us, screen illuminated to show the active recording. Say exactly what you mean, Mom. I want it on record. The color drains from her face as her eyes fix on the phone. You're recording me? Your own mother? Yes. Now explain what you meant about my children being different. She stands abruptly, gathering her purse. I won't be ambushed like this. When you're ready to be reasonable, call me. Malcolm takes the boys for ice cream while I meet with the financial advisor. Sarah accompanies me to the bank to remove my name from my parents' accounts. My therapist validates the boundaries I'm establishing, helping me navigate the guilt that still occasionally surfaces. When Claire appears at my office again, my coworkers create a buffer. Taylor intercepts her at the front desk while Diane calls security. James walks me to my car afterward. At school, the counselor meets with Eli and Noah, providing a safe space for them to process their confusion. Your boys are remarkably resilient, she tells me during our follow-up. They understand more than you might think. The invitation to dinner at Malcolm's parents' home comes as a welcome respite. Joyce embraces Eli and Noah as they arrive, her affection natural and unreserved. Thomas leads the boys to his workshop after dinner, patiently showing them how to sand wood for the birdhouse they're building together. I watch from the doorway as Thomas guides Noah's small hands over the sandpaper. Smooth strokes, buddy. There you go. The contrast with my own family strikes me deeply. No conditions, no subtle reminders of difference, just love, expressed through time and attention. Joyce joins me, passing a cup of tea. They're wonderful boys, she says simply. Thomas is so patient with them, I observe. She smiles. That's family for you. Real family. What do you mean? Thomas looks up from his workbench. Family is behavior, not blood, Jackie. Never forget that. The truth of his words settles in my chest. Around these grandparents, my sons laugh without restraint, ask questions without fear, exist without apology. The final meeting with my parents is set for Sunday afternoon. I arrive 20 minutes early, using the spare key they don't know I've kept. The house is quiet as I step inside, but voices drift from the kitchen. I pause in the entryway, listening. Jacqueline always gets so dramatic, Linda sighs. The boys are sweet, but they'll have a hard time in life. Better they learn early. At least she always comes back with money, Claire responds, her voice matter of fact. She's our safety net. My father's reply freezes my blood. The mixed ones will always be a little different. It's just reality. My fingers find my phone automatically, opening the recording app as I step into view. 3 heads turn toward me, expressions shifting from surprise to calculated welcome. I press record and hold up the phone where they can all see it. Tell me more about the mixed ones, Dad. I'm listening. I stand in the doorway of my parents' living room, phone clutched in my palm. Gerald, Linda, and Claire freeze like deer caught in headlights. I heard everything, and I recorded it. I repeat. My voice comes out steadier than I feel. Gerald recovers first, his face morphing from shock to dismissal. You misunderstood what we were saying, Jackie. We were talking about how society treats children like yours, not how we feel. No misunderstanding necessary. I step forward, placing my leather portfolio on the coffee table. I heard exactly what you meant about my mixed children. Claire's eyes widen, her hand flying to her throat. That's not fair. You're twisting our words. I unzip the portfolio, removing a stack of neatly printed spreadsheets. 9 years of financial transactions laid bare in black and white. I slide them across the polished walnut surface, watching their eyes track the movement. $141,000. I tap the bottom figure circled in red. That's what I've given this family since I was 25, not including co-signing your mortgage. Gerald barely glances at the papers. Family helps family. That's how it works. This isn't help, it's parasitism. The word hangs between us, sharp and undeniable. Linda flinches as if I'd slapped her. I pull a typed statement from the back of my portfolio. I've prepared this for clarity. I'm ending all financial support permanently. The automatic transfers have already been stopped. I've contacted the mortgage company about removing my name, though that will take longer. Gerald's face flushes dark red. You can't just walk away from family obligations. Watch me. Claire's face crumples, tears spilling down her cheeks with practiced precision. We never meant it that way. You're twisting our words. I've seen this performance before, the quivering lip, the catch in her voice. It worked on teachers, boyfriends, and me for decades. Not today. Linda clutches her chest, her voice dropping to a whisper. Your father's blood pressure can't take this stress. Is that what you want? To put him in the hospital? You should have thought about his health before you decided my children deserve to eat scraps on the kitchen floor. Gerald's voice hardens. I wonder what Malcolm's boss would think about these family concerns. Mental stability affects job performance, you know. The threat lands like a punch. Malcolm's position at the university is everything to him. Claire pounces on my hesitation. It might be worth a call to child services. Family instability raises red flags. Linda nods solemnly. Pastor Williams was just asking about your family last Sunday. The church community notices when people stop attending together. Their coordinated attack nearly knocks me off balance. For a moment, I'm 8 years old again, caught between Claire's accusations and my parents' united front of disapproval. The front door opens. Malcolm's footsteps echo in the hallway. He appears beside me, tall and solid. Without a word, he places his phone on the table and presses play. Gerald's voice fills the room. The mixed ones will always be a little different. It's just reality. Claire gasps. You were both recording us? Threats won't change our decision, I say quietly. Malcolm speaks for the first time, his voice calm but firm. Our children won't be exposed to this again. I gather the spreadsheets, tucking them back into my portfolio. No money, no contact, no exceptions. Gerald rises from his chair, pointing a finger at Malcolm. You're behind this. You've turned her against her own family. Malcolm doesn't flinch. Jacqueline makes her own decisions, always has. The realization spreads across my father's face slowly. His typical tactics, divide and manipulate, won't work this time. We're united. Linda reaches for my hand. I step back. We're done here, I say, zipping the portfolio closed with finality. 2 months later, Sarah calls with news from her cousin who attends my parents' church. They missed their mortgage payment. The bank sent notices. I feel nothing but a dull ache where guilt used to live. The following week, Claire's husband Tom calls Malcolm. They're repossessing Claire's car. She's been calling everyone for loans. Malcolm tells me over dinner, watching my reaction carefully. How do you feel about it? He asks. Like I can finally breathe. 3 weeks after that, we hear Gerald tried leveraging community sympathy at their church's potluck. His story backfired when he mentioned my ungrateful abandonment to Pastor Williams, who asked pointed questions about why I'd withdrawn support. A month later, Tom leaves Claire after discovering credit card debt hidden in his name. Their suburban facade crumbles quickly without my financial foundation. I watch it all from a distance that grows more comfortable each day. My therapist notices first. Your shoulders aren't up around your ears anymore, she says during our weekly session. That night, Malcolm slides into bed beside me, his hand finding mine in the darkness. You smile more. You sleep through the night. Do I? Haven't heard you grinding your teeth in weeks. Eli's questions about his grandparents grow less frequent. His nighttime anxiety attacks, which I'd never connected to family visits, subside. Noah's artwork transforms gradually. The dark scribbles that concerned his teacher brighten. Stick figures hold hands, smiling with oversized grins. At work, I find myself speaking up in meetings without rehearsing every word in my head. My boss notices. Your presentation to the executive team was exceptional. We're considering you for the senior management position. AGT. A position I'd never pursued because weekend family emergencies consumed the extra hours needed for career advancement. On a Tuesday evening in June, Malcolm spreads brochures across our kitchen table after the boys are asleep. "What's this?" I ask. "Summer vacation options. Just the four of us." I pause, waiting for the familiar knot of anxiety. How will my parents react if we don't visit them? What excuse will placate Claire? The knot doesn't form. Instead, a strange lightness fills my chest as I look at pictures of beaches, mountains, and lakes. "The boys would love that waterfall hike," I say, pointing to a glossy photo. Malcolm's smile spreads slowly. "4 tickets then. No extended family discount needed." I lean against his shoulder, feeling the steady rhythm of his breathing. "Just us." "Just us," he echoes, his arms circling my waist. The weight I've carried for decades continues to lighten, one obligation at a time. I slam the phone down harder than intended, my hand trembling. 5 months since I cut financial ties with my parents, and the calls keep coming. This time, Linda's voice had that rehearsed quiver, the one she uses when aiming straight for my guilt. "We can't survive without help, Jackie. We've had to sell the house." The image of their sprawling suburban home, the one I co-signed for, flashes in my mind, now replaced by a 2-bedroom apartment across town, according to Mom. Part of me feels a twisted satisfaction. The larger part feels the familiar weight of responsibility pressing down. Malcolm slides a cup of tea beside my laptop without comment. His eyes ask the question he doesn't voice. "They've moved to an apartment," I say, wrapping my fingers around the warm mug. "Mom says they're barely making ends meet." He nods once, face neutral. "We've played this scene before." My phone buzzes with a text. "Claire, you've gotten what you wanted. Happy now?" Mom cried all night. They had to sell Dad's coin collection to make rent. So vindictive. The word burns. Vindictive. As if boundaries equal revenge. "There's a family gathering Sunday." I tell Malcolm, scrolling through Claire's follow-up texts. "Aunt Patty is hosting. Apparently, I'm the main topic of conversation these days." "Are we going?" Malcolm asks, his tone carefully even. I shake my head. Not a chance. But Claire made sure I know they're taking up a collection at church for Mom and Dad's medical needs. The air quotes feel childish, but necessary. Dad's blood pressure has become their favorite leverage point. Malcolm sits beside me at the kitchen table, his presence solid. "Your father called me yesterday." My head snaps up. "What? Why didn't you say anything?" "Wanted to see how it played out." He stretches his long legs under the table. He implied he might contest the mortgage removal. Said something about legal options and family obligations. Ice forms in my stomach. Can he do that? No, but he thinks the threat will work. The doorbell rings, startling us both. Through the front window, I spot Claire's silver SUV in our driveway. "What now?" "I'll get it," Malcolm says, squeezing my shoulder as he passes. I hear their voices in the entryway, Claire's high and tight, Malcolm's low and controlled. Then her heels clicking on the hardwood as she follows him into the kitchen. "We need to talk," she announces, not bothering with hello. She looks thinner, the designer purse on her arm less new than her usual. Financial reality has begun to bite. "Then talk," I say, not offering her a seat. Her eyes narrow. "This has gone far enough, Jackie. Dad's doctor says his health is declining from stress. Mom can barely sleep." "I'm sorry to hear that." "No, you're not." Claire tosses her hair back. "You're punishing them because you can't handle the truth." "Which is?" She leans forward, voice dropping. "That when those boys grow up, they'll face a world that sees them differently. We were preparing them." My fingers curl into fists under the table. "By feeding them on the floor while your kids got the good china?" "That was one time." "It wasn't." The certainty in my voice stops her. And we both know it. Claire straightens, switching tactics. "Mom says you're killing Dad with stress. Is that what you want? And when your boys are older, I'll make sure they know exactly why their grandfather died." The threat hangs between us. I feel Malcolm stiffen beside me, but he stays silent, letting me handle my sister. "Anything else?" I ask. Her eyes flick between us, searching for cracks. Finding none, she grabs her purse. "The whole family knows what you're doing. Everyone at church, even the neighbors. They all see you for what you are." After she leaves, the pressure to give in just this once, just a little money to help them through, nearly overwhelms me. The familiar role of fixer beckons like an old addiction. Malcolm's hand covers mine. They survived before you. They'll survive now. I nod, though the words feel hollow against 20 years of conditioning. That night, Eli crawls into bed between us during a thunderstorm, his small body curled against my side. After the thunder subsides, he remains awake, thoughtful in the way that always makes him seem older than 8. "Mom," he whispers, "is it because Dad's black?" The question knocks the air from my lungs. In the dim glow of the nightlight, I see Malcolm freeze on the other side of the bed, eyes open but unreadable. "Why do you ask that, honey?" I manage. Eli picks at a loose thread on the comforter. "Grandpa told Connor that kids like me and Noah have to work twice as hard because of our dad." Truth hovers on my tongue, battling with protection. I look across at Malcolm, whose pain is visible even in the shadows. "Yes, honey," I finally say. "Some people have small minds, even people who are supposed to love you." Malcolm's hand finds mine across our son's body. "Even Grandma and Grandpa?" Eli's voice is small. "Even them," I confirm. "But it's their problem, not yours, and it's why we don't visit anymore." Later, after Eli falls asleep, Malcolm and I sit at the kitchen table, speaking in low voices. He tells me about the comments over the years, subtle digs, jokes that weren't really jokes, the way my father would introduce him as Jacqueline's husband, rather than by name. "I didn't tell you everything," he admits. "You already felt caught in the middle." The revelation cements something in me, a certainty that had been forming for months. We're doing the right thing. 6 months after the initial confrontation, Malcolm comes home with unexpected news. "Your father called. Wants to meet for coffee." His expression is cautious. "Just me." The meeting happens at a neutral coffee shop downtown. I spend the hour pacing our kitchen, jumping when the door finally opens. Malcolm's face gives nothing away as he sets his keys on the counter. "Your father apologized." I blink, certain I've misheard. For what specifically? For how he treated me. The boys. He shakes his head, looking dazed. Said he's been doing a lot of thinking since they downsized. Realized some things about himself he's not proud of. The next day, Linda calls, her voice lacking the usual manipulation. "We'd like to try family counseling. All of us. We were wrong, Jackie. We want to rebuild, not for money, for family." The familiar skepticism rises. "The money isn't coming back," I say firmly. "Love my children or stay away. Those are the only terms." "I understand," she says, and for once, I think she might. In the months that follow, my journal of incidents becomes a healing tool in our family counseling sessions. The financial records showing the exploitation pattern remain in a folder on my desk protection, not ammunition. The recordings documenting their racism stay on my phone, unplayed but preserved. Gerald joins a local unconscious bias group, his participation shocking everyone, including himself. Linda cries during our 3rd session, a raw, ugly crying I've never seen from my always composed mother. "I was raised with these beliefs," she admits. "I want to be better." Claire's progress comes more slowly. She attends the sessions but speaks little, her defense is higher. Yet by the 3rd month, even she begins to acknowledge the harm done. We meet for dinner at a moderately priced restaurant to mark 3 months of counseling. For the first time in my adult life, everyone pays their own bill. No subtle looks in my direction when the check arrives. No convenient trips to the restroom as the server approaches. Watching my father explain the rules of baseball to Noah across the table, I realize the power dynamics have permanently altered. Not through revenge, as Claire once accused, but through truth, through boundaries that should have been established years ago. As we leave, Linda touches my arm. "Thank you for giving us another chance." I nod, not quite ready to forgive completely, but acknowledging the journey. "It's not for me," I tell her, watching my sons walk ahead with their grandfather. "It's for them. They deserve grandparents who see them, all of them." She follows my gaze, something new in her eyes, something that looks remarkably like understanding. I lean back in my chair at Riverside Grill, a modest restaurant with warm lighting and the faint scent of rosemary in the air. 1 year has passed since that day in my parents' kitchen, the day everything changed. Now, my gaze travels across the table where Gerald listens with genuine interest as Eli describes his latest art project. "So then, I mixed the blue and yellow," Eli explains, his hands moving animatedly. And my teacher said my trees looked just like the real ones outside our window. Gerald nods, his eyes crinkling at the corners. That's talent, buddy. Maybe you could show me how to paint trees sometime? The question holds no hidden agenda, no conditional approval, just a grandfather who wants to share his grandson's passion. Beside them, Linda leans toward Noah, peppering him with questions about his baseball season. And you caught that fly ball? Right at the fence? Noah beams, spine straight with pride instead of tension. Coach says I have a good eye for tracking the ball. At the kids' table nearby, Claire's children and my boys trade jokes and French fries with easy camaraderie. No hierarchy, no subtle positioning, just cousins enjoying each other's company. The setting mirrors that first dinner, almost exactly, family gathered around food, yet everything has changed. Noah shares his science project award without searching our faces for validation. Eli tells stories without that nervous glance I used to know so well, checking if anyone was really listening. Gerald turns to Malcolm. How's that new project coming along? The Sustainable Housing Initiative? Malcolm explains, and Gerald asks follow-up questions that show he's been paying attention all these months. Linda divides her attention equally between all 4 grandchildren, helping Connor with his napkin one moment and praising Noah's drawing the next. Claire catches my eye across the table. The entitlement that once shadowed her features has softened into something resembling gratitude. She's working now, her first full-time job in years, and the accomplishment sits well on her shoulders. When the check arrives, everyone reaches for their wallets without discussion. No more financial imbalance, no more unspoken obligations. I've got mine, Claire says, sliding her card into the folder. The waiter brings separate checks without being asked. We've been here often enough now that he knows our routine. Later, as we gather our things, Malcolm leans close. You stand taller now, he whispers, his breath warm against my ear. I squeeze his hand. I finally know my worth. Outside in the parking lot, Linda pulls me aside while the others help the children into their jackets. Losing your support was the best thing that happened to us, she says, her voice steady with hard-won wisdom. It forced us to see what mattered. I nod, knowing our monthly family therapy sessions continue to unearth surprising growth, especially from Gerald. His work on confronting his prejudice runs deeper than any of us expected. Linda and Malcolm's mother meet regularly for coffee now, sharing grandchildren's stories and recipes. Even Claire makes steady progress, though slower than the others. The drive home is peaceful. In the rearview mirror, Eli whispers something that makes Noah collapse into giggles in his booster seat. Malcolm's hand finds mine across the console, his touch familiar and grounding. The best investment I ever made. I say softly, watching my boys in the mirror, was teaching my boys that respect can't be bought and love doesn't come with conditions. Malcolm's fingers tighten around mine as I drive toward home, toward the life we've built on truth rather than compromise. In the back seat, my sons laugh freely, unburdened by expectations they never should have carried. And in that simple sound, I hear our victory. I grip Eli's small hand a little tighter as we step through the heavy glass doors of the Copperhouse Grill. The rich scent of aged steaks and buttery sauces wraps around us like an expensive perfume. A hostess with perfect posture greets us, her practiced smile warming when she spots my 8-year-old son straightening his little clip-on tie. Good evening, Miss Monroe. Your family is already seated. My heart does a small flip. $600, that's what it costs to secure this corner table for my parents' 45th anniversary. $600 from my marketing job salary that already stretches too thin between mortgage payments and Eli's school needs. But tonight needs to be perfect. Ready, buddy? I ask Eli, who nods solemnly. The restaurant unfolds before us, all amber lighting and polished wood. A piano player coaxes something classical from the grand piano in the corner. Couples lean into intimate conversations. The hostess leads us past it all toward the large round table where my family waits. I spot them immediately. My younger sister Brianna, her perfectly highlighted hair cascading over a designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Her husband Derek nods absently while thumbing his phone. Their 2 boys, 7 and 5, squirm in their chairs despite the tablet propped between them. My father Frank sits tall in his chair, my mother Elaine beside him, both beaming at Brianna's sons. On the table between my parents rest 2 wrapped gifts with bright blue ribbons, one for each of Brianna's boys. Nothing else. We're here, I announce, summoning warmth into my voice. Mom glances up. Oh, Alexis, there you are. Not a single pair of eyes shifts toward Eli. Happy anniversary, I say, leaning down to kiss my mother's cheek. It's cool against my lips. 45 years is incredible. Dad accepts my kiss with a stiff nod. Thank you for setting this up. Brianna barely looks away from her phone. Hey sis. I help Eli into the empty chair beside me, watching as he carefully smooths his napkin over his lap like I taught him. His dark eyes dart around the table, taking everything in. I can tell he notices the gifts. The absence of acknowledgement. Eli picked out cards for both of you, I say, nudging my son gently. He reaches into his little suit pocket, producing 2 handmade cards with careful crayon drawings. Happy anniversary, Grandma and Grandpa. Mom takes them with a distracted smile. That's nice, dear. The cards disappear into her purse without being opened. Alexis, be reasonable. Your sister needs this more. The memory of my mother's voice slices through me, sharp and familiar. How many times had I heard those words growing up? When Brianna needed the new coat more than I needed winter boots. When Brianna deserved the last piece of cake because she'd had a hard day at school. When Brianna required my college fund because her wedding venue had to be perfect. It's a pattern I've never broken. Even now, with Eli to raise on my own after his father walked out, I still send Brianna money when she calls with her latest crisis. Still show up to every family function, hoping that this time will be different. Still wanting, for Eli's sake, just one perfect family dinner. A waiter appears with leather-bound menus. I watch Eli's eyes widen at the fancy script, his finger carefully tracing the descriptions of each dish. He pauses at the shrimp pasta, his favorite meal for special occasions. Would anyone care for appetizers? The waiter asks. Brianna's boys shout their demands, while my father nods approvingly at their healthy appetites. When the waiter turns expectantly toward Eli, my son looks up at my father first. A child's instinctive deference to the family patriarch, then back to the menu. Could I have the shrimp pasta, please? Eli asks, his voice barely audible over the piano music. The waiter looks toward my father, who continues studying his menu as if Eli hadn't spoken. The silence stretches uncomfortable seconds longer. Then Brianna smirks, not bothering to look up from her phone. We didn't order for him. My breath catches. Before I can respond, my father adds coldly, You should have packed him something. The table goes deadly silent. Even Brianna's boys stop squirming, sensing the sudden tension. Eli shrinks in his chair, his eyes dropping to his empty plate. His small shoulders curve inward like he's trying to disappear. I feel something crack inside me. Not dramatically, but with the quiet finality of ice breaking on a winter lake. 5 years of raising this gentle, kind boy alone. 5 years of bringing him to family gatherings where he's treated as an afterthought. 5 years of telling myself it would get better if I just tried harder. My face remains perfectly still as I process what has just happened. My family has deliberately excluded my child from dinner. At an event I paid for. At a table I reserved. The waiter shifts uncomfortably beside us. Perhaps I should come back. No, I say, my voice unnervingly calm. That won't be necessary. I stand slowly, straightening to my full height. Please cancel any pending orders for this table. Alexis. My mother begins, alarm creeping into her voice. Bill it all to my father. I continue, meeting the waiter's eyes. It's his celebration, after all. I reach for Eli's hand. He looks up at me, surprise replacing the hurt in his eyes. It's the first time he's seen me stand up to my family. The first time I've chosen him, truly chosen him over their approval. Frank's face reddens. Now wait just a minute. No, I say again. I don't think I will. Brianna's mouth hangs open in shock as I guide Eli from his chair. We walk away from the table, past the curious glances of nearby diners, through the elegant restaurant where I'd hoped my son might finally feel included in his own family. He squeezes my hand as we reach the doors. Are you mad, Mom? Not at you, I tell him. Never at you. Only at myself, for how long it's taken me to see what was right in front of me all along. Later that night, my phone buzzes for the 13th time. I don't need to check it to know who it's from. The screen lights up the darkened kitchen where I sit alone. Bank statements spread across the table like fallen leaves. Each notification brings another accusation. Frank, you humiliated us in front of everyone, after everything we've done. Elaine, how could you embarrass your father on his special night, after everything we've done for you? Brianna, so dramatic. It was just dinner. You're overreacting as usual. I sip cold coffee and pull another statement from the stack. The truth hides in plain sight between deposit notices and withdrawal confirmations. My fingertip traces each transaction as if touching a bruise to confirm it's real. There it is, $900 transferred to Brianna's account on the 1st of every month for the past 8 months. Half her rent, though she'd claimed it was for emergency car repairs the first time. Then medical bills, then her boys' school supplies. The money never came back. Another statement reveals $3,000 in emergency loans that vanished without repayment or acknowledgement. 4 years of my life cataloged in financial support that no one remembers giving. I close my eyes, the numbers burning behind my lids. When I open them, I notice Eli's school photo on the refrigerator, his cautious smile, those serious eyes taking everything in. Just like at the restaurant. My phone buzzes again. I silence it. 3 days pass in blessed quiet. I'm chopping vegetables for Eli's lunch, when knocking erupts at the front door, 3 sharp raps that speak of entitlement. Through the peephole, I see them. Frank stands center, shoulders squared in his golf polo. Elaine hovers behind him, arms crossed. Brianna shifts her weight from one designer heel to the other, chewing her lip in fabricated distress. I consider pretending I'm not home, but their car is visible in my driveway. I've run out of places to hide. Coming, I call, wiping my hands on a dish towel. The moment I open the door, Frank pushes past me into my modest living room. The space shrinks with their presence. We need to talk, he says, not waiting for an invitation. Eli is at school, thankfully. This isn't something an 8-year-old should witness. About what? I ask, closing the door behind them. Frank's nostrils flare. About that dinner fiasco. You embarrassed this entire family. Brianna's eyes well with practiced tears. People are still talking about it. Our reputation. Frank slaps a folded paper onto my coffee table. It unfolds to reveal a typed invoice for $1,200, double my original deposit. You owe us. Elaine steps forward, voice honey-sweet but eyes cold. Be reasonable, Alexis. Pay up, or we'll tell everyone what an ungrateful daughter you really are. The threat hangs in the air between us. I feel that familiar urge to cave, to write a check just to make them leave, to buy another few weeks of peace. Instead, I say, excuse me for a moment. I need to make a call. I step into the kitchen, my hands steadier than I expect as I dial. Aunt Carla? It's Alexis. Could you and Uncle Ray come over? Right now? It's important. 20 minutes of frosty silence later, the doorbell rings. Ray and Carla enter like reinforcements in a battle I've fought alone too long. Ray's 6'4" frame and quiet dignity make Frank straighten slightly. Carla, my mother's older sister, surveys the scene with sharp eyes that miss nothing. What's this about? Ray asks, voice calm but carrying authority Frank has always resented. Brianna starts her performance again. Alexis abandoned us at Dad's anniversary dinner and now won't take responsibility. That's not what happened, I interrupt, surprising myself with my steady voice. They refused to feed Eli, at a dinner I paid for. Frank steps toward me, finger pointing. You listen here. Back off, Frank, Ray says quietly, not moving, but somehow placing himself between us. Carla perches on the arm of my sofa. I've watched this pattern for decades. You've always favored Brianna. Always expected Alexis to sacrifice without complaint. That's ridiculous, Elaine sputters. Is it? I walk to the dining table and return with my stack of statements. I've been paying half of Brianna's rent for 8 months. $1,800 a month and I've covered half. That's $7,200. Brianna's face pales slightly. Emergency loans that were never repaid. I flip through more pages. Free babysitting for her boys while she and Derek take weekend trips. Emotional support that's never reciprocated. My voice gains strength with each word. This ends today. Carla nods. When's the last time anyone helped Alexis? When she was divorcing Jason? When Eli had pneumonia last winter? When her car broke down in July? Silence settles over the room. Frank stares at the floor. Elaine examines her manicure. Brianna swallows hard. That's what I thought, Carla says. I walk to my purse and remove 6 crisp $100 bills, money I can't really spare but need to spend for my sanity. I slide them across the coffee table toward the invoice. Half the deposit. That's fair. Ha. Frank reaches for the cash. Now about the rest. The rent payments to Brianna stop today, I say, voice level despite my pounding heart. And I've documented everything, every transfer, every text begging for money, every promise to pay me back. If anyone wants to talk about who's ungrateful, I have receipts. Brianna's false tears dry instantly. You can't do that. I have bills. So do I. I gather the statements and return them to their folder. We're finished here. Frank sputters objections, his face flushing dark red. Brianna looks panicked, her eyes darting to Elaine for support that doesn't materialize. I believe my niece asked you to leave, Carla says, standing. Ray moves toward the door, opening it wide in silent invitation. They file out Frank first, then Elaine, then Brianna, who pauses to hiss. You'll regret this, before Ray's presence urges her forward. I close the door behind them. The house feels suddenly larger, the air easier to breathe. Ray squeezes my shoulder once before he and Carla slip away with promises to call tomorrow. Alone, I slide down against the door until I sit on the floor. My hands tremble violently now, tears I wouldn't let them see build behind my eyes. But I hold them back. Eli will be home soon. He doesn't need to see me cry. Not today. Today, for the first time in my adult life, I've chosen myself. 2 days later, I checked my phone for the 10th time this morning, scrolling through my notifications with a knot forming in my stomach. Brianna's Facebook status glows from the screen. Some people forget where they came from when they think money makes them better than family. 27 likes. 5 comments asking what happened. Mom's response appears directly below, complete with heart emoji. Some people forget where they came from. The vagueness is deliberate. Just enough information to signal something's wrong without providing context. Just enough to make people curious. Just enough to make me the villain. My phone rings. Cousin Beth's name flashes on the screen, the third family member to call today. I send it to voicemail, adding her to the growing list of calls I'm screening. The quiet satisfaction of this small boundary surprises me. 2 weeks ago, I would have answered immediately, desperate to explain my side. Not anymore. My notepad sits open on the kitchen counter. Every interaction since the restaurant confrontation, methodically documented, dates, times, exact wording. What began as a defensive measure has become oddly comforting, like building a fortress around Eli and me, one fact at a time. The phone buzzes with a text from Jennifer, my coworker. Coffee before work tomorrow? You seem like you could use a friend. I type back yes, before I can overthink it. Sunday morning brings church, a ritual I've maintained for Eli's sake despite my complicated relationship with Faith. We slip into our usual pew, and I immediately feel the weight of stares. Mrs. Rollins leans toward her husband, whispering behind her hymnal. Their eyes dart my way, filled with concern that feels nothing like compassion. Are you okay, Mom? Eli asks, noticing my white-knuckle grip on the program. I force my fingers to relax. I'm fine, buddy. Later, in the fellowship hall, I overhear Elaine's friend Patricia, having mental issues since the divorce. Such a shame for that little boy. I guide Eli toward the door without comment. Another note for my documentation when we get home. Tuesday afternoon brings my second therapy session. Doctor. Winters sits across from me, her silver-framed glasses catching the light as she reviews my notes. This is excellent documentation, Alexis, she says, tapping the notebook. Most people don't think to record these interactions. I need to remember exactly what's happening, I explain. Sometimes I doubt myself. That's common with long-term family patterns, she nods. You're establishing boundaries many people never manage. How does that feel? I consider the question carefully, like putting down something heavy I didn't realize I was carrying. Thursday evening finds me pushing a cart through Sunridge Market, Eli beside me reading items from our shopping list. We turn into the baking aisle, and my body tenses before my mind fully registers why. Brianna stands near the flour, her phone pressed to her ear. She spots us immediately. I'll call you back, she says loudly, ending her call. Her eyes narrow as she approaches. Well, if it isn't the family destroyer. Eli edges closer to me. I place a protective hand on his shoulder. We're just grocery shopping, Brianna, I say quietly. This isn't the place. There is no right place when you're tearing a family apart over nothing. Her voice rises, drawing attention from other shoppers. Mom's heartbroken. Dad barely speaks. All because you couldn't handle one dinner? An elderly woman with a cart pauses, openly watching. A store employee glances our way. This isn't about dinner, I say, keeping my voice low and steady. It's about respect. For me and for Eli. Respect? She laughs, the sound brittle and hollow. What about respecting the people who've always been there for you, who've supported you through everything? The lie is so blatant I almost laugh. Memories flash. The rent payments I've been making for her apartment. The emergency cash transfers that never got repaid. The childcare I provided while she and Derek took weekend trips. You'll regret choosing your pride over family. She continues, voice dropping to a theatrical hiss. Family is everything, Alexis. Everything. I said. The old me would have apologized, would have found some way to smooth things over, would have taken Brianna for coffee afterward to talk it out, ending with me somehow apologizing for being hurt. Instead, I simply say, "Excuse us," and guide my cart around her. Really? You're walking away? She calls after us. I keep moving, Eli's small hand finding mine. You did good, Mom, he whispers, once we're in the next aisle. His approval fills me with unexpected strength. The support continues to appear in unlikely places. Jennifer meets me for coffee before work, listening without judgment as I share carefully edited highlights of the family drama. Sounds like you're finally standing up for yourself. She observes. About time. Miss Watson, Eli's teacher, mentions during parent pickup that he seems more confident in class. Whatever changes you're making at home, they're working, she says with a warm smile. Dr. Winters validates my boundaries as healthy, not selfish. Your family has a narrative about who you are and what you owe them, she explains. When you challenge that narrative, they'll escalate before they accept the new reality. Aunt Carla calls daily, her check-ins a lifeline of family connection without the toxicity. Your mother pulled this same routine when I refused to loan Frank money for his failed hardware store venture. She reminds me. 2 months of silent treatment, then she pretended nothing happened. Most surprising is the single-parent support group I joined at Dr. Winters' suggestion. Here, among strangers sharing similar struggles, I find myself opening up about patterns I've never articulated before. Their nodding understanding feels like permission to continue healing. The following week, on Wednesday, my phone rings during a client meeting. Eli's school number flashes on the screen. Miss Monroe? The principal's voice sounds strained. Could you come in this afternoon? There's a situation we need to discuss. Ice forms in my stomach. Is Eli okay? He's fine, but we've received a concerning report. It would be better to discuss in person. 3 hours later, I sit across from Principal Delaney, a woman from Child Protective Services beside him. My hands shake slightly as I fold them in my lap. Someone has filed an anonymous report claiming neglect. The CPS worker explains, her tone professional but not unkind. We're required by law to investigate all reports. The fear that initially flooded me transforms into something harder, colder. What kind of neglect? Inadequate food unsupervised after school hours, possible emotional neglect. Each accusation is so absurd it would be laughable if it weren't so serious. My mind immediately catalogs the facts. Fully stocked fridge, Eli's after-school program attendance records, his excellent academic performance. When would you like to conduct your home visit? I ask, my voice steadier than I feel. The CPS worker looks surprised at my directness. Tomorrow morning, if that works for you. Perfect. That night, I don't panic or cry. Instead, I clean our already tidy home, organize Eli's schoolwork into labeled folders, and print out his medical records showing regular checkups. I lay out his carefully planned lunch for the next day. Then I call Aunt Carla. Brianna, she says immediately when I explain. Has to be. The CPS worker arrives promptly at 9 the next morning. She tours our modest but well-kept home, checks the refrigerator and pantry, reviews Eli's school records, and observes his clean bedroom with appropriate toys and books. Miss Monroe, she says as she makes final notes, I'll be closing this case immediately. This appears retaliatory. What does that mean? I ask, though I already know. It means someone likely filed this report to punish you, not out of genuine concern for your son. She looks up from her clipboard. Unfortunately, we see this in family disputes. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. After she leaves, I call Jennifer to reschedule our lunch. Then I make another call, to an attorney recommended by a member of my support group. I need to document harassment. I explain over the phone, and I need to know my options. 2 days later, I sit in Attorney Lawrence's office with my evidence spread before us. Every Venmo transfer to Brianna, every rent receipt, every begging text message. $7,200 over 8 months, she says, reviewing the figures, plus childcare hours equivalent to approximately 4,000 in services. She looks up at me over her glasses. You've been thorough, that's good. I'm learning to be. And you've been recording all interactions with family members? I nod toward my notebook. Dates, times, exact wording whenever possible. Excellent. I can draft cease and desist letters based on the harassment pattern and false CPS report. She taps her pen against her legal pad. You understand this will effectively sever your relationship with them? The question should terrify me. Weeks ago it would have. Now I feel only clarity. This isn't family drama anymore, I tell her. It's war. I watch the FedEx driver retreat down my walkway, his shoes crunching on autumn leaves. The cease and desist letters rest in my hands, 3 identical envelopes addressed to Frank, Elaine, and Brianna Monroe. My attorney Sarah assured me this was necessary after the CPS ambush. You're doing the right thing, she had said yesterday, sliding the documentation across her desk. False CPS reports are serious. These letters establish a paper trail. The envelopes contain meticulous records, bank statements showing years of financial support, text messages begging for emergency loans, and a formal statement from the CPS worker confirming their visit appeared retaliatory. Sarah's stern warning about legal consequences sits prominently on the first page. My terms are clear. The financial exploitation ends today. I drop the letters into the outgoing mail slot and exhale. For the first time in years, I'm not seeking approval or fearing disappointment. I'm simply protecting what's mine. My phone buzzes that evening while I help Eli with homework. A number I don't recognize. Alexis? It's Derek. Brianna's husband. My finger hovers over the end call button. Please don't hang up, he says quickly. I'm not calling to argue. Then why are you calling? My voice remains neutral, neither welcoming nor hostile. Brianna pushed for the CPS report, he admits, his voice low. I tried to stop her, but... He pauses. Look, check your Venmo in 5 minutes. I'm paying back everything, the rent, all of it. Why now? Because this has gone too far. The resignation in his voice surprises me. $3,600. That's what we owe you, right? I'm done enabling this. She's on her own now. Sure enough, 5 minutes later, my phone pings with a Venmo notification. $3,600, with a simple message. I'm sorry. Another text follows. They're planning something else. Be careful. I don't respond immediately. This unexpected alliance feels like quicksand, too dangerous to reject outright, too unstable to embrace. Instead, I screenshot the transaction and forward it to Sarah. Documentation. Always documentation. The weekend arrives with unseasonably warm October sunshine. Eli spends the morning at a friend's birthday party, giving me rare quiet hours. I decide to tackle the garage, a project I've avoided since the divorce. Physical labor feels right. A way to channel the storm of emotions into something productive. 3 hours in, sweat dampening my t-shirt, I unearth a shoebox tucked behind my old college textbooks. The sight of it sends an electric jolt through my body. This box came from my childhood bedroom during the hasty move after my divorce. I'd forgotten it existed. I carry it into the kitchen, my hands trembling slightly as I remove the lid. The scent of old paper and forgotten memories rises to meet me. School report cards with teacher comments about my quiet, helpful nature. A blue ribbon from a 5th grade science fair. A handful of photographs showing a solemn-faced girl standing apart from her beaming younger sister. At the bottom, a yellowed envelope. My mother's precise handwriting addresses it to my father. The date August 1988, 1 week after my birth, makes my heart stutter. I slide my finger under the sealed flap, which opens easily after decades. The letter inside is written on my mother's personal stationery, the pale blue paper creased and fragile with age. Frank. I wasn't ready for another baby. Not so soon after Brianna. I try, but I can't seem to bond with this one like I did with our first. When I look at Alexis, I don't feel that same rush of love. Sometimes I wonder if there's something wrong with me, or with her. She's so quiet, so watchful. Nothing like our Brianna. What if this never changes? What if I never love her the same way? Elaine. At the bottom, in my father's blockier handwriting, a response. She'll grow out of it. Just favor Brianna until then. Less pressure on you that way. The paper slips from my fingers, landing silently on the kitchen counter. 35 years of feeling like an outsider in my own family suddenly crystallizes into perfect clarity. It wasn't my imagination. It wasn't my fault. My exclusion wasn't something I could fix with more effort or understanding. It was by design. From the very beginning. I stare at the evidence of my mother's emotional rejection, a confession she never intended for me to see. The familiar ache in my chest transforms into something else entirely. Not hurt, exactly. Not even anger. Just a profound, overwhelming certainty. I reach for my phone and photograph the letter. Without allowing myself to hesitate, I send the image to my parents and Brianna. No subject line. No message. Just the evidence. Then I block all 3 numbers. My Aunt Carla calls the next afternoon while Eli plays in the backyard. Her voice carries a strange mix of shock and vindication. "I ran into your mother at Safeway," she says without preamble. Elaine looked like she'd seen a ghost, white as a sheet. She kept muttering that you'd destroyed the family. I watch Eli through the kitchen window as he carefully constructs an elaborate fort from fallen branches. "I didn't destroy anything, Carla. I just exposed the truth." "Well, that letter's certainly done its work," Carla continues. "Your cousin Melissa called. Apparently, your sister's been on a rampage, screaming at your parents about documented favoritism." A pause. Frank's blaming Elaine for keeping the letter all these years. I should feel something satisfaction, perhaps, or grief. Instead, I experience a strange weightlessness, as if I've set down a burden I've carried so long I'd forgotten it was there. People are starting to see through Brianna's narrative. Carla adds, "That perfect family image is cracking wide open." After we hang up, I join Eli in the backyard. He's created an impressive structure, complete with a small entrance and what appears to be a lookout tower. "Want to see inside, Mom?" he asks, his face flushed with creative pride. When I nod, he leads me carefully to the entrance, pointing out features along the way. He pauses suddenly, studying my face with surprising intensity. "You look different," he decides. "Different how?" He considers this seriously, head tilted. "You don't look worried anymore." I squat down to his level, meeting his earnest gaze. "I'm not worried anymore," I tell him, realizing as I say it that it's true. The tightness that's lived between my shoulder blades for as long as I can remember has finally released its grip. Family narratives shatter easily when exposed to light. Mine took 35 years to crack, but now that it has, I feel only the quiet strength of truth. The foundation beneath me feels solid for the first time in my life. I duck my head and follow my son into the fort he's built with his own hands, leaving the past where it belongs. The certified letter arrived on a Tuesday 2 weeks later. Official, crisp, white envelope with a prestigious law firm's embossed return address. My fingers trembled slightly as I sliced it open after sending Eli off to school. "Notice of petition for grandparent visitation rights," the heading announced in bold. My stomach dropped as I scanned the formal legal language. Frank and Elaine, no longer mom and dad in my mind, were demanding court-ordered access to Eli. The document cited Arizona family law statutes and painted me as an emotionally unstable mother who was vindictively withholding their grandson from them. I sank onto the kitchen chair, the paper shaking in my hands. They were actually taking me to court. After years of barely acknowledging Eli's existence, suddenly they were claiming some deep bond that I was cruelly severing. "Miss Monroe has exhibited increasingly erratic behavior," the petition claimed, including abruptly severing family relationships without cause, making unfounded accusations, and demonstrating an inability to maintain healthy familial connections essential to the child's well-being. The lawyer's name at the bottom was from one of Scottsdale's most expensive firms. Of course, they'd spare no expense now, when it served their image. For one terrible moment, fear gripped me like a vice. What if a judge sided with them? What if my son was forced into supervised visits with people who had deliberately excluded him, who had filed false reports against me? The thought of Eli being legally mandated to spend time with them while I waited helplessly outside made my chest constrict. Then there was the money. Attorney fees, court costs. How much would fighting this drain from Eli's college fund? From our stability? I called my attorney with shaking hands. She promised to review the documents immediately, but the hour until she called back stretched endlessly. I paced our kitchen, imagining worst-case scenarios where judges who didn't know us made decisions that would haunt Eli for years. When my phone finally rang, my attorney's voice came through calm and steady. "They have no case, Alexis. Arizona law won't support them." "You're sure?" I pressed, needing absolute certainty. Grandparent visitation in Arizona requires extraordinary circumstances. The court prioritizes parental rights unless there's clear evidence that severing the grandparent relationship would genuinely harm the child. She paused. "Given what you've shown me about their minimal involvement in Eli's life, plus the false CPS report, their case is laughably weak." The relief nearly buckled my knees, but as I hung up, anger replaced fear. This wasn't just another manipulation. It was a declaration of war against my son's well-being. I spent the weekend building my fortress. Every slight against Eli, every missed birthday, every dismissive comment, all documented chronologically in a massive folder. Bank statements showing thousands funneled to Brianna while Eli wore hand-me-downs. Text messages where I'd begged them to attend Eli's school performances, met with excuses or silence. And at the center of it all, that damning letter from 1988. The one where my mother had written to my father that she couldn't bond with this one, and his callous response to favor Brianna until then, the smoking gun that explained a lifetime of rejection. Monday morning, I called Eli's school and filed for a restricted access order. Only approved individuals would be permitted to pick him up or visit Aunt Carla, Uncle Ray, my close friend Jennifer. Frank and Elaine's names were conspicuously absent. "Is everything okay, Miss Monroe?" the principal asked, concern evident in her voice. "Just taking precautions," I answered. "There's a family situation being resolved." That afternoon, I met with my estate attorney and updated my will. If anything happened to me, Carla and Ray would become Eli's legal guardians. Not Frank and Elaine, not Brianna. The document felt like armor protection extending beyond my lifetime. When my attorney delivered our formal response to the grandparent visitation petition, she called afterward with barely contained satisfaction. "Their lawyer just called me," she reported. "He's advising them to drop the case." "What changed his mind?" I asked. "Your documentation, particularly that letter from 1988. He said he can't in good conscience pursue a case that would be this damaging to his clients if it went public." I had won. Not just this battle, but the war. Years of allowing myself to be the family doormat had cultivated in me the perfect weapon, meticulous record-keeping, born from desperate attempts to understand what I'd done wrong. The following morning, I mailed identical letters to Frank, Elaine, and Brianna. 1 page, 5 sentences. I have documented every instance of neglect, manipulation, and cruelty toward Eli and myself. I have shared this documentation with my attorneys and trusted friends with instructions to make it public if necessary. If you contact me or Eli again in any way, I will involve law enforcement and release everything. This is not a negotiation or a temporary boundary. It is permanent. That evening, I gathered every family photo containing Frank, Elaine, and Brianna. The frames emptied one by one as I fed each picture into the shredder, watching as smiling faces from holiday dinners and forced family gatherings disappeared into confetti. In their place, I created a new photo wall. Eli and me at the Grand Canyon. Carla and Ray teaching him to fish. Jennifer's family joining us for Thanksgiving. Our chosen family, the people who actually showed up. My phone buzzed with texts from extended family members I hadn't heard from in years. My father's brother asking if what he'd heard was true. My mother's cousin expressing shock at the CPS report. The power dynamics were shifting, the carefully curated family narrative crumbling. The following weekend, I booked a camping trip to Sedona. Just Eli and me under the stars, our first true just us adventure. As we packed the car, my phone pinged with a notification. One final message from Elaine. My finger hovered over the delete button. Part of me, the old Alexis, wanted to know what she had to say. What justification or plea or threat she was making now. I took a deep breath and pressed delete without reading it. Some messages don't deserve to be read. Some chapters need to stay firmly closed. "Ready for an adventure, buddy?" I called to Eli, who was carefully arranging his sleeping bag in the trunk. His smile, relaxed and genuine in a way I hadn't seen in months, was all the confirmation I needed. 3 months later, the tent stakes sink into the rusty earth with satisfying thuds as I secure our temporary home. Sedona's magnificent red rock formations tower around us, catching the late afternoon sun like ancient sentinels on fire. Eli darts between the juniper trees, his laughter bouncing off canyon walls as he collects pine cones for our evening campfire. Mom, look at this one. He holds up a perfectly formed specimen, eyes bright with discovery. It's bigger than my hand. No phones chirping with accusatory texts, no family drama suffocating us like too tight clothing. Just open skies, fresh air, and my son's voice stronger and more confident than I've ever heard it. That's perfect for our collection. I call back, smiling as he carefully places it with the others. Eli chatters about rock formations and desert wildlife as we finish setting up camp, his knowledge surprising me. The quiet, hesitant boy from the Copperhouse Grill has transformed into this curious explorer who now speaks without first checking if anyone wants to hear his thoughts. Our laughter echoes against the canyon walls as we race to fill the water jugs, playfully splashing each other at the campground spigot. His giggles uninhibited and free fill spaces in my heart I hadn't realized were empty. Later, our simple camp dinner feels luxurious compared to that sterile restaurant meal months ago. Flames dance in the fire pit while we roast hot dogs and marshmallows. Eli sits cross-legged on a flat rock, completely absorbed in the careful rotation of his marshmallow, determined to achieve the perfect golden brown. When he looks up, chocolate smeared across his chin, and graham cracker crumbs dusting his shirt, his expression turns suddenly serious. You seem happier, Mom. The words hit me with unexpected force. This observant child sees everything, always has. I exhale slowly, watching the flames. I am. 3 months ago, those same words might have been forced reassurance. Tonight, they're simple truth. The dynamic between us remains mother and son navigating the world together, but utterly transformed from that tense night at the restaurant. While Eli hunts for the perfect stick for another marshmallow, I find myself reflecting on the journey that brought us here. For years, I'd worn my peacekeeper role like a second skin, sacrificing my own well-being to maintain a toxic family harmony that never really existed. The guilt that once shadowed my every boundary-setting attempt has been replaced by something stronger, confident, self-advocacy. I no longer believe I'm selfish for refusing to be mistreated. The mantra that carried me through those final confrontations replays in my mind. We deserve respect, not just inclusion. My monthly therapy sessions have helped me process the family trauma without drowning in it. I've found friendship with other parents who understand healthy boundaries aren't walls but necessary protection. At work, the promotion I received last month reflects energy finally redirected toward my career, rather than managing family crises. Eli's teacher reported his grades improving alongside his confidence. And my relationship with Aunt Carla and Uncle Ray has deepened into something genuine, the family we've chosen rather than inherited. Last week, Jennifer from accounting stopped by my desk, her eyes red-rimmed from crying over her mother's latest manipulation attempt. How do you do it? She'd asked. Just walk away from family? I'd shared what took me years to understand. You can love people from a distance. Sometimes that's the most honest love there is. I gave her the number for my therapist and the title of the book that helped me recognize generational patterns. Finding purpose in supporting others through similar struggles has become an unexpected gift. Morning arrives with pink gold lights spilling over distant mesas. Eli and I hike toward a viewpoint overlooking the valley, our breathing synchronized in comfortable silence. Standing here, I realize my body feels different, shoulders relaxed, spine straight, breath coming easily. Eli reaches for my hand naturally as we pause at the overlook. Trust fully restored between us. Mom? He asks, squinting into the brightening sky. Yes, buddy? I like our family better now. I squeeze his small hand in mine. Me too. The simple truth settles between us. Family is what we build, not what we're born into. As the sun crests the horizon, mother and son stand silhouetted against the dawn sky, walking together toward a new horizon neither of us could have imagined 6 months ago.